Last time out, we talked about creating a beer league team from scratch, picking a name, coming up with a logo, finding your players. But once you've got all that figured out, you run into the next, and honestly, sometimes the most complicated question: where do I get jerseys from? Talking all about jerseys on this episode of the Beer Leaguer Podcast. Hockey jerseys. Seems like a simple thing to solve, but man, when you get into it, there's so many little details and stuff to think about that if you haven't ordered jerseys before, if you haven't had to figure out getting jerseys for your team or for a new team, you're probably going to get screwed by some of these things. So in this episode, I want to break down on how to actually choose beer league hockey jerseys, from suppliers to materials to the different types of printing methods. And more importantly, what matters when you're out on the ice wearing them. Because having just a little bit of knowledge about what some of these things mean, like the different types of printing methods, can go a long way to helping you make sure you get jerseys that not just you, but the rest of your team is happy with. Okay, so first things first, you should already have a design for your jerseys. Reference the previous episode that I talked about, talking about different ways to come up with designs and logos and colors and all that kind of stuff. All sorts of different ways you can do those types of things, and if you're getting jerseys for, a full season team and not just a tournament, you're going to want to have probably a white jersey and then some sort of color jersey, usually a darker color jersey. That's kind of the standard to have for stuff. Then also you're going to want to know, how detailed do you want these things? When you're coming up with your jersey designs, you got to decide, do you just want, logo on the front, name on the back with a number? Do you even want names? Just want a number and a logo? Do you want shoulder patches? Do you want numbers on the sleeves? Are you going to try and get sponsors and have sponsors somewhere around on your jerseys? Do you want, tied collars, or do you want just this kind of standard generic hockey jersey collar? Do you want little details inside the jersey collar? You can get all this stuff. A lot of these places that make jerseys will do different things for you, but you have to know to ask for them, and you have to have them designed, because manufacturers of the hockey jerseys aren't just going to make stuff based on what you tell them you want. You have to show them, because they want to go, okay, this is the mock-up design, everything detailed here. Here's how everything looks. Is that what you want? And then you sign off, and then they will make them. Because if they don't do that, and they just go off of what you said, whatever they're picturing in their head might not be what you said. And all of a sudden, those 20 jerseys you ordered, you want to return because, oh no, when I said I wanted numbers, I meant I wanted like black numbers on our jersey, not the white numbers. But if you didn't tell them that, they don't know. So they're going to want to know very specifically what you want. So make sure you have this stuff locked down as much as you can. Now, there are some places that if you don't have everything completely done for you, they will help you out to some degree. Some of these places that make jerseys will have a full-time designer, and they will help you make one from scratch if you really want. Again, go back to some of the stuff we talked about, using AI to come up with some ideas, so you can at least bring some ideas to the table to show these people what you're looking for. But for the most part, a lot of these places also do like other printing things. They probably also do like t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. So they have people that know how to manipulate designs, and they will definitely help guide you for what you need and, make sure like, hey, these are the types of colors we can print. Is this blue, okay for the blue that you asked for? Is this number size fine? And give you like mock-ups to go off of and help go that way. But they won't completely design it from scratch for you. So that's something, if you need a complete design from scratch, make sure you're looking for when you are picking who's going to be printing your jerseys. Number 2, really important to consider when you are looking to get jerseys made. What are the jerseys for? Are these just some kind of like a practice jersey that you're going to have that, maybe you wear to like a pickup skate or something like that, or you and your buddies have the same hockey jerseys, or maybe it's not even for playing hockey. Maybe it's hockey jerseys for like wearing out. So it's, something that matches with stuff, or is it for actual games? All very different things, different sizing, different needs for the stuff that you have. This will come into a play later on. The stuff is building on itself. So stick with me. And if these are for actual games, Is this like a one-off for tournaments? Or is this for like a team that you have that's hoping to be around for multiple years and these jerseys need to last multiple seasons? Again, very different kind of setups of what kind of jerseys you want and maybe how much you're willing to spend on them. And also, along with that, that kind of goes into what we talked about before is, do you need two sets of jerseys? If this is for just a tournament, you can probably get away with one set of jerseys. If it's a unique color or something like that, you can probably do that. If it's for like pickup, sure, get like one white jersey or one dark jersey. Again, don't be the person with a gray jersey or a yellow jersey. You can't play for both teams. You are just an ass. That's fine. But if it's for a, regular season thing that you have that, you play a certain number of games, you probably need to have home and away jerseys. Some leagues I know do designate teams for a color, and that's okay. But most of them don't. Most of them is you have your jerseys, you need a light jersey, you need a dark jersey for home and for away. So find that stuff out. Because again, this is going to add up. If you're getting jerseys just for one off for a tournament and everybody's getting one single color jersey, that is a way different price than if everybody that you have for your league, everybody has to get two jerseys. Different stuff. What this does is it really helps you figure out how cheap you can go. I mean, you can always go expensive for whatever you want and go over the top for whatever you need. That's totally fine. But this really helps kind of give you the floor of where you can be for what you're looking for a jersey. All right, number 3. Now we're getting into the factors that really, really will determine the cost of your jerseys and what you really need to look for in a manufacturer. So all these things kind of work together. They really don't work independent of each other. So keep that in mind. All these factors really work together to figure out the kind of jersey you want. It's not really a pick and choose. It's more of a trade-offs versus what you really want kind of thing to go with. It's also different places offer different combinations of these or don't offer any of these at all. So try and figure out which of these are important to you and what you want, and then find someone that makes jerseys that fits that for you. All right. So number 1, jersey material. So going from kind of the most expensive to least expensive, which is also going to be the most durable to least durable, which you might not think is a big deal, but durable is important for, just washing the jersey. Especially, if these are going to be for a league, you're going to be washing these jerseys at some point. More durable is going to be holding up better to multiple washings. It's also going to hold up better for rips and tears and holes and things like that. And it's also what stuff is going to hold smells versus not hold smells. The least durable jerseys honestly tend to usually not hold smells as much, but they're a lot less durable, so they don't hold up as well, whereas the more durable ones do hold smells, so they need to get washed more, which is good that you can wash them more so they don't stink.
Let me take a quick moment to invite you to head over to thebeerleaguer.com, where you can check out previous podcast episodes, keep up with all the goofy and sometimes informative social media posts, and contact the show. There's an easy-to-use contact form, a button to leave voicemails, and a newsletter sign-up. All of us here would love to hear your thoughts on this episode or ideas for future ones. Now back to the show.
Hopefully you followed that. All right, so starting off with the most durable, like the most heavy-duty jersey material you can get is really heavyweight jerseys. There are jerseys out there that are really like an actual sweater. It's wearing like a sweater. They are very thick. They are very warm, but they are very, very durable. You can kind of do any kind of customization on them usually, but they are usually kind of expensive, but they do hold up great. They take a washing really well. But yeah, they're pretty heavy and they are pretty hot usually. Slightly a tick below that, you have what's kind of called the pro weight jerseys. That's what I think you see in a lot of places when they have hockey jerseys. This is kind of usually what they're talking about is pro weight. These are usually super durable, almost as durable as kind of these heavyweight jerseys. You don't really have a ton of color choices a lot of times with these, because these are usually based on pro team color options. So for like the stripes and stuff that are on them, these are usually based on that. So this is when you'll see teams that have like, our home jerseys are the, Los Angeles Kings home jersey blank, and our away jersey is, say, the Seattle Kraken away jersey, that dark blue color with the lighter blue stripes. So you kind of get those kind of color combinations versus having some of the more exotic ones that you can get with some of the ones we'll talk about in a moment here. So that's kind of your downfall there. But with these, this is where you can start getting some of these nice things like the ties for the jersey, like the nice lace up jerseys. Big fan of those with the old school look. These are also the ones that are more likely to have stuff like being able to get stitched on nameplates that can be replaced, because they are a little bit more heavyweight. They can kind of take that. So this is where you'll see things like that usually and more commonly offered regularly with it. Your next tier down below that is your lighter jerseys that are usually used for dye sublimation jerseys. Now, these are going to be a little bit lighter than your pro weight jerseys. They are a little bit more of a less breathable jersey, but they're lighter. So that kind of makes up for it because they're very, it's like a very, I'm trying to think of the way to say it, like a closed knit jersey because you're, dyeing on them and printing on them right away versus sewing everything on. With the Pro 8 jerseys, you're probably sewing things on. These ones are taking dye. So a lot more, think of almost like a thick t-shirt, somewhere along that, or a thin sweatshirt kind of material that you have. Again, usually pretty durable. These are usually fairly durable jerseys. This is where you start getting the stuff that is super versatile for color combinations, because these are going to be blanks that are just like a white or a slightly off-white, or maybe some places they will use like a black blank jersey, and then everything is printed on them. So this is where you can get into crazy color combos, crazy printing and stuff on them for whatever you want. Generally, it's harder to find with these kind of jerseys to have things like the lace-up necks and stuff like that. But this is also where you can start getting maybe not nameplates, but you can get stuff printed like inside the collars, or have like printing custom collars and stuff like that, because everything is printable on it. Now, within these like lighter dye sub material jerseys, the range on quality can be a lot. There are ones that are great quality and hold up wonderfully. I also have had ones that are a little bit cheaper, and they're great for a little bit, for a couple of wears, but then the printing and stuff, everything starts to pill up on them, and they don't last as well. Like not like the printing goes bad, but the jerseys themselves can start to break down on some of the cheaper ones. So that's something to watch out for. Again, going back to if you're looking for these for like a one-off tournament, if these are for like a weekend tournament where you're playing, 3, 4, 5 games, very different versus if this is for your league and you're gonna have to get, 20, 25 games out of them. So look at kind of the quality on those materials of which one you're sort of getting there. And then finally, at the very bottom, you have what I've always heard is like an air mesh jersey, or almost like practice jerseys. These are the ones that are super thin, a lot of times a little plasticky, and very, very cheap. These usually are super, super limited printing options, super, super limited printing options on them. Probably nobody's really sewing on them for the most part. You aren't going to have kind of that pilling thing that you have with those dye sub jerseys, but these are the jerseys that are probably going to tear really easy and rip up very, very easy. They're super light, which is great if you're doing like some kind of outdoor hockey in the summer. These are a lot of roller teams. I know back in the day used to use these kind of jerseys for summer teams because they are super light. They are kind of like a little bit more mesh than other jerseys, so they're super, super breathable for playing and stuff, and nice and cooling. But yeah, they are not very durable for things, so not something you would get for a super long time. Usually it's very limited color selections with these because you're not printing all over on them again. So it's kind of usually like one color base for the whole thing, and then you can get some stuff printed on them, and that's it. But on the upside, these are always the absolute cheapest jerseys you can get. So if you need jerseys for a one-off thing, this is something to maybe consider. So you think you know what kind of material you want for your jerseys to be made out of, but I need to get stuff on them. Jersey customization. There's a couple different ways to do this, but you need to think of how intricate are your designs that you have on them, or how intricate do you need them to be? And things like, are you going to have sponsors? Do you want those to be on there permanently? Do you want those to be removable? Do you want to have names that are removable? Or is this somebody buys a jersey? That's it. That's theirs permanently. No questions asked kind of thing. So, all right, you have a couple of options for getting stuff onto your jersey. You have stitching. They can hand stitch everything. Usually what you get is more of like they embroider something. So usually you'll see like the front logo will be a large embroidered patch basically that gets stitched onto the jersey. Same thing, names and numbers are basically large patches that get stitched onto the jerseys. These are very much pro style. That's how pro jerseys are done. So that means they're going to look great, but they're probably going to be really expensive because you need to get things like the logo made. There's not stock logos for your team logo, so they've got to make those, then stitch those to the jersey. So there's like multiple parts here. With numbers and letters for like the names and all that kind of stuff, it's usually just the stock versions of those. You can get custom stuff. That gets super expensive. But generally, if you're getting stitched on everything, they're going to use like kind of the stock styles for those things, stock sizes and stuff. And that's something that they'll have that they don't have to make, but it's still expensive because it's a very manual process for things. Usually the stitching stuff will last a super long time. It's usually super durable. If there is any problems with it, it's pretty easy to repair. Usually if you have problems, it's something just starts to come up because, it's worn out, stitches broke, you can just restitch it, by hand or with a sewing machine. So that's usually all that happens. Or for something like drastic happens to the logo and it gets completely messed up, say you take a skate to it or something and it gets slashed, you can always, because it's stitched on, cut the stitches off, take that off, sew on a new logo, boom, you're good. Stitching stuff can generally be done in any of the types of jerseys that we talked about. Maybe not the AirKnit ones, depending how cheap you go with those, but generally you can do that on any of those. Kind of the downside with these are, like I said, they are expensive, but they can also be kind of stiff and make the jersey heavy because you're adding stuff onto there. So if you have, a front logo patch and you do shoulder patches on both sides and numbers on the sleeves, and you have a name and number on the back and stuff, that's a lot of weight you're adding to the jersey. And those parts are going to be double, triple material on that. So it's going to make them warmer. It's going to make them heavier. It's going to make them a little less breathable. So that can be a downside. Also, these can take a while to make, depending on what kind of place you go through, because it is such a manual process. Like I said, they have to, even just for a center logo that you have, that has to get made. Those are like basically giant patches that have to get embroidered for every jersey. And then all that stuff has to get sewn on. And even if you're using a sewing machine, it's still a very manual process to sew those things on for stuff. So it can take a long time. So you need a long lead time to get those jerseys. So that's kind of one of the bigger downsides for those. Now, your next option that you have, screen printing. This has been around forever for jerseys. This is generally the cheapest way to get stuff onto a jersey. Most places that do like custom t-shirts and stuff can put stuff on hockey jerseys. Usually it's super quick turnaround, but doesn't generally hold up to wear and tear very well. Because this is really just basically painting. If you don't know what screen printing is it's basically like painting on your logos and your numbers and everything like that. It's basically painting that stuff on to the jersey. It can look nice. It looks very much like a t-shirt would look for something like that. Like most t-shirts have screen printing on them, so it looks a lot like that. But wear and tear. It can get scratched off. It's just ink on there. It doesn't really embed itself generally great into the jerseys. So it can over time wear off with it. Or just wear off from washings if you wash it a decent amount. Not a great way to repair if something like that happens. If some of the paint comes off, you can't really re-screen print accurately. So it's just something you kind of have to deal with, And once it's on there, there's no way to take that stuff off because it's printed on there, basically painted onto it. But this is, a good choice if you have simpler designs. You can't get super intricate with this. With the stitching, you can get more intricate. With this, you can't get as intricate, but it's usually the quickest turnaround and it's the cheapest. This is something that you'll see a lot of times. I was talking like the super cheap air mesh jerseys. This is something you'll see like that done for people at a tournament. So like, hey, it's got to last, 4 games. We put a funny logo, we have our names on it or whatever. Don't care. It was super quick to get. They were cheap. Just need it for a couple of games. That's where you kind of get that combo of things working. Then finally, the last type of jersey customization that you have, and this is really the newest one that's out there, is dye sublimation. And what that is basically it's printing on a jersey. It's printing all the colors on it, but it's really like dyeing the jersey. So whereas screen printing is like kind of painting on and it can kind of get scratched off, dye sublimation actually dyes the jersey. It dyes parts of it to have that. So you can't scratch that off and out of there because it's dyed fabric. So it is a much more longer lasting solution for it. I would say in the last 3, 4, 5 years, this has become the most popular way to have jerseys get done because there's a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to make these jerseys, and the freedom it gives you is it lets you print all over. The stitching, you have to manually attach whatever you want onto the jersey. Screen printing, it doesn't give you great detail, and it's a really laborious manual process, whereas dye sublimation, kind of once you set it up and have your printers ready to go to print these jerseys, you can just basically print on the jerseys like you have like a computer printer. You can do it that way, which, takes a little bit to set up, but you can print a ton of them like that. Also, where that helps is it can be super cost effective. A lot of times dye sublimation jerseys are as cheap, if not cheaper than screen printing jerseys nowadays because people have kind of the shops set up for it. So, that's a nice win right there. You're not making the screens for screen printing. You're not having to make the embroidered logos. So it's obviously going to be cheaper than that. And you have the widest variety and choices for colors and designs and kind of how crazy you want to get with stuff for it. You're not stuck to, whatever embroidery thread they can get or whatever they can do for that. And you're not stuck for things like screen printing, how many screens you have that you can put on a jersey and how many times they'll go over something to get multiple colors. So it really gives you a lot of choices. Also, most places can get very detailed with their dye sublimation. You can get very, very detailed for it. That's where you're seeing, if you go to any tournaments or even if you're playing in a league now and you see it, teams that have just crazy, wacky jerseys that have goofy designs all over the place, they're probably dye sub jerseys because that's an easy way to do it. And it's the cheapest way to do it. That used to be super expensive to get done. Now it's not. So it's kind of become the most popular option. And finally, you can get hybrids of all these. Usually you don't really see a hybrid with screen printing anymore, but you can. But there are definitely places that will dye sublimate your whole jersey, but then give you like a stitched on front logo to kind of have that pro look on it. But you can definitely get places that will do multiple types of customization options on a single jersey. But again, that's probably going to cost you more than just getting one type. So something else to think about for it. So kind of pick and choose what you think is most cost effective and gets you the jersey the way you want it to look. And also makes a jersey comfortable because you're going to be wearing these. All right, number 4, choosing your supplier. So hopefully you have kind of an idea, or at least somewhat of an idea of what you want for design. You think you know how you want your jerseys to be customized which way. That's also helped you pick out what type of jersey material you think you want. Now you got to find a supplier. All right. Most places, just to kind of get this out of the way, most places will charge you an initial startup fee or setup fee or something like that right off the bat, because they have to either input this stuff into the computers for the, for printing them, or they have to make the screens for them, or they have to set up the embroidery machines to make this stuff. So most places will do some kind of setup fee for it. That's kind of a universal thing. Some places waive it if your jersey order is big enough, but don't be shocked when that happens. Other things to consider when you are looking at where to get your jerseys from. What is the minimum order? That's a big one. Is that a minimum just for the first order? What about reorders? Some places have a minimum first order, and then you can reorder however you want after that. If you order 16 jerseys the first time, but then next season you need 2. Will they let you do that? Or do you need to order, 12 jerseys every time? Some places will, let you order 1 jersey or 2 jerseys. If you're going to a tournament and there's only 8 of you, you don't want to have to order 12, 14, 16 jerseys just to be able to, get the 8 that you need. So minimum order, super important to look at for jerseys. Every place does a little bit different, and it depends on your situation, what you need, but that is a very important thing to look at. Next, how fast can you get them? Usually when you get to end of September, October, that is when these places are slammed. And that is when it's just going to be tough to get jerseys fast. That's when these places are the busiest. They are probably cranking out jerseys 24 hours, getting these things going as best as they can. But if that's when you decide to order them, just know that it's probably going to be a super long lead time. Whereas if you need them over the summer, or say November, December, when leagues have started and kids hockey's been going and all this stuff, probably they can get them out a lot quicker because there's not as much stuff going on. So if you have a deadline that you need to have jerseys by, if you have a tournament, if your league has a deadline for when everyone has to have jerseys, something like that, that can play a big factor in who you go to and when you order jerseys. If people can't get them to you when you need them, you can't get your jerseys from there. So definitely something you need to find out and ask about. Do you need uniform accessories? Things like socks or shells or anything like that. Do you need them? Do you want them? Do they provide them? A lot of these places will provide some kind of socks. You can usually either get the wool socks that are like NHL style socks in NHL colorways without much problem from most of these places, or you can order them separately as well. But if you want really custom ones, you probably have to go with dye sub socks. Does the place you're getting jerseys from do that? Do you care? Do you need shells? Do you want some goofy dye sub shells? Do you want some of those full uniforms where the jersey and the shell all make one continuous look on it? Not a lot of places will do shells, so you have to find a place that does if you want those. So something else to look out for. If you need those things and want those things, that's something you have to look at. That's going to cut down who you can get stuff from. Like we talked about in the very beginning of all this stuff, will they help you, if you need it, get your design into whatever format they need? Some places will do some of this for free. Some places will do the whole thing for free. If you just kind of give them, hey, here's our logo, here's the colors we want, come up with something. Some places have this as a whole separate business that, they can charge you a decent amount of money to have this done. Some places will not do this at all, and they go, hey, here is our format that we need stuff in. That is all we accept. So finding out how far you can take stuff to make sure stuff looks good and making sure that it can convey to them what they need to do and what you're expecting from them and how much help you need from them goes a long way in choosing who you are going to get jerseys from. If you need a ton of help with it, it's really going to limit your choices for who will, really sit down and take time with you to figure this stuff out and also drive the price up, honestly. Along with that, will you get a mock-up? Most places will give you a mock-up design before okay the jerseys getting printed. Definitely, if you're using them as designers, they should be doing that, but that's something to ask and make sure that they will have. These mock-ups, they help make sure that what they are going to print is what you are expecting from them, which is super important. But also, this is something you can take, and if you have to go to someplace else to get jerseys done, make sure that things match. On here will be things, not just the detailed design of what all the parts of the jersey look like, it will give you what every single color is that's on the jersey. Usually they'll use something called Pantone colors, which you don't really necessarily need to know what all those are, but it's how design people pick exact colors and shades and stuff like that. So if you're going to have to get jerseys from somebody else, it's important to have like the colors and stuff on there set up so you can take these to whoever. So this is an important thing to get this mock-up and have those designs for you because they're your designs, so you can take them somewhere else if you need to. Finally, what brands of jerseys or jersey blanks are they using? This can be super helpful for figuring out sizing, because sizing can be really, really tough. Some places will not use the same types of blanks all the time, and they will kind of change. And that can be super confusing, and it can be really frustrating if you're doing reorders of jerseys because they will not be sized the same. If you know what kind of blanks that they're using, what the base of them are, you can look up sizing charts online if they don't offer you one and compare them with existing jerseys that you have to at least get a close approximation. Because even though hockey jerseys, some places will use regular clothing sizing like large, extra large. There's always a goalie cut. Some places will use it like that. Some places will use like jersey sizing, which is like 46, 48, 54, stuff like that, which, you know, should be all the same. But I mean, if you've ever bought clothes before, you know that everyone's size large t-shirt is not the same. Hockey jerseys, exactly the same. I have seen hockey jerseys that are supposedly the same size, but some places have like a super slim body that you can barely get over pads. I have seen places that do super huge arm cuts, like the arms are massive on the jerseys. I've seen ones that are super long. I have seen ones that have super short body jerseys and ones that are super long body jerseys. So it's important to find out what kind of blanks they're using, get the sizing information, hopefully from them. If not from them, look it up online. Like I said, compare to other jerseys that you have. If you have the same brand jersey or someone else on your team does, great. That's a great starting point. If you don't, get out a tape measure, try and figure it out, because ill-fitting jerseys are one of the most annoying things when ordering jerseys, because you think you've ordered all the stuff right, everything else has come out right, but all of a sudden everyone's jersey is, you know, a little too short, or everyone should have ordered a size up or a size down, or, you know, the goalie ordered whatever size and it doesn't fit over his goalie chest protector or something like that. So it's very important to know that so you can get proper jersey sizing, because a lot of times when you order custom jerseys, unless they messed up something, like they messed up the printing, you know, they have wrong names or they screwed up something like that, usually you can't return them. So really, really try and nail this down. And this is why it's kind of important to go to a more reputable place that is hopefully using the same types of jerseys year after year after year. So if you have to order multiple jerseys over the course of many seasons that you're playing, you know what you're getting into. All right, so there you go. Hopefully that gives you all the questions you need to ask and things to make sure that you know before you are ordering jerseys. Making sure you have all the design stuff down, determining how you're going to use them, when you're going to use them, what you're using them for. With that, picking appropriate jersey materials and a proper printing method based on that stuff and pricing, and then going through different jersey suppliers and finding ones that'll do all the stuff you want so you can have nice jerseys that you and your team enjoy wearing and think that you look super cool out there with. Hopefully. So you're probably going, hey, who have you used to get jerseys from? Honestly, I haven't used a lot of different places because I've generally had good luck with the places that I have used for jerseys. So a couple of places that I have actually designed jerseys and sent them to and gotten jerseys back from, not just ones that I own, but I've gone through kind of the whole soup to nuts process with them. I have used a place called Men's League
Letters.
for this, and their jerseys are really nice. I have found them to be a little bit smaller sizing than some of the other places, but not real significantly so. Just a little slim fit for some of the sizing on it, but the jerseys last very well. They have all been good quality for me. They're ones that I have worn for more tournaments and then subsequently like worn them for like pickups and things like that. So I haven't really beat them up super bad, but they've been really nice. They have some of the niceties. They're dye sub jerseys. I've gotten them with the lace ups. I really like having the lace up jerseys. I think those look cool. And those have, like I said, they've lasted pretty good. The printing is real nice on them. It's very clear. I have noticed some ones that I have from years and years ago started to have some of that pilling effect, like on the collar and things like that. But on newer ones that I have that are only a couple years ago, I have no issues with that. So I think they've gotten a little bit better. While they've also gotten, frankly, a little bit more expensive. But I think it's been worth it. Another place I used to use way back in the day, you can see one behind me here, actually. An example of this is that's a pretty cheap jersey that is kind of close to that air knit quality jerseys almost. And it has just screen printing done on it. And I got these from a place called Pirani's. That is a chain of hockey stores through the Midwest. People probably know them, soon to be Pure Hockey that they're getting bought out by. But they did those. They were super cheap, done super fast. What we used them for, they were great. They're screen printed, so there were times that stuff has worn away on them and kind of basically chipped off from it. But that's what you're gonna get with screen printing. But yeah, they're real nice. But that's all at the time. That was all they did for printing. They didn't have any other options for them. And I'm sure that has changed. But this is going back like 20 years ago. Buying these jerseys, but they were real nice. Like I said, super cheap and super fast, which was big things for us at the time. And the place that I currently get all my jerseys from for anything I do is justhockeyjerseys.com, which is actually the people that also do all black hockey sticks. Same people for it. And that's where I currently get all my jerseys from. All dye sub jerseys, very nice quality for them. They are very good about helping you with your design. I don't think they'll fully design stuff for you, but if you have a design, they'll help you kind of manipulate it so it works out for the jerseys for them. Super friendly people to work with. They're a smaller place, so sometimes the lead times, if you go kind of peak season, can take a while. But the pricing is amazing on them. The pricing there is super, super cheap. And for the quality, it really, really doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So that's who I've been using the last couple of years to get jerseys from. Also, they let you, after we've done like initial orders with them, after you have that, they do let you in subsequent years buy small amounts of jerseys, which for my league is great to have that. It's great to have that for my team because, we need every year 2, 3, 4 jerseys for new people that are joining us for it. So that's a really nice thing to have there, to be able to have that ability for. So those are kind of 3 places I have worked with the most and done the most buying from. And I think I'd recommend all of them. I've had good luck with all of them with their options and things like that. Like I said, Just Hockey Jerseys is who I currently use and have had the most kind of interaction with over the years because I'm talking with them at least once a season, sometimes multiple times a season to order more jerseys for things. All right. So at the end of the day, the best beer league jersey isn't necessarily the most expensive one. Hopefully I've pointed that out. It is the one that your team actually wants to wear. So that's one that's comfortable, one that looks good on the ice, one that's actually going to hold up for the usage that it needs to have, and still matches when you bring in new players onto your team so you actually look like a team. Because the jersey is one of the few things in beer league that lasts and will last beyond playing, hopefully, because players can come and go, you can change teams, but jerseys stick around. You see behind me, if you watch the video of any of these episodes, I have a rack of jerseys that are all things that I've played in, tournaments, teams I used to be on, all kinds of stuff. That stuff lasts beyond the team. So jerseys are important. So if you're in the process of building a team, Or maybe you guys are just upgrading your jerseys or getting a new set of jerseys for a different design. Hopefully, this episode has given you a little bit clearer idea of things that do matter and the things that don't matter, and the stuff that you kind of need to know before actually going out there and trying to get jerseys made. And if you haven't listened to the episode on building a beer league team yet, where we talked about choosing a name, creating a logo, putting all this stuff together, definitely go check that out. This episode really kind of built off of the stuff we talked about there. This is one of those subjects I would really love to hear from you about. What kind of jerseys has your team used? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What will you do differently next time you get jerseys? Drop a comment. Let me know. As always, the best way to get a hold of the show, or check out past episodes, or leave voicemails, or get links for any of the stuff that I talk about in any of these things, head on over to thebeerleaguer.com. It's the best place for all this stuff. Let me know. Love to hear from you guys. Appreciate whenever you give feedback for things. Thanks a lot for listening. Catch you in the next one.